Hello everyone, this will be our first video and our second module of building a basic stock bot. And the whole goal of this module is at the very end, we'll be able to build a functional stock bot which can identify entry points for a certain stock as well as exit points. So the first step is we'll be using Python for much of the code. So in order to start, we need to install this. So just go to Google, type in Python, and then just download Python for whatever system you have. You can look at it in the downloads and such. And when you download, make sure when you get to this screen to add the Python to path, right? So click this checkpoint when you get to this screen. Okay, now that you've installed Python, we're going to be using something called a Pip Installer for much of our actions. Basically, a Pip Installer stands for a preferred installer program, and it allows us to install packages from our command prompt. And so we can install the Pip Installer, right? So in order to do this, we go to our command prompt and you enter this text right here, this first command. And don't worry, I'll put all these commands inside this under the video so you can easily copy paste them. So first you want to type in this command, the curl https bootstrap and so on. After that, you see all these processes happen. And then next, what you want to do is Python get-pip.py. This will actually install the latest version of the pip. And then finally, we're going to use the pip to install a package. What we're doing here is pip install yfinance. What this does is it web scrapes Yahoo Finance for a lot of different data, right? Because in order to find entry and exit points, we need to get the prices of all these different stocks, right? And in order to do this, we need a web scrape, which basically is a technique where we go to different websites and we extract data and we use this data in our own program. So we're using Yahoo Finance to do so we need to install this package called yfinance. So after all these processes are done, you just gotta give it a minute. We can go to our Python code. I'm using Visual Studio, but you can have the basic Python IDE, which you downloaded in the beginning of this video. So our first step is we've got to import our packages, right? So we want to import the yfinance, which we just downloaded through the command prompt, as yf. What this does is just basically takes that package and allows us to use all the components of it. And by abbreviating it as yf, we can just type yf and it basically means yfinance. So it's kind of like a shorthand kind of thing. So the next we have import pandas as pd. Pandas is basically a data reader which allows us to sift through these masses of data and organize it very efficiently. And again, we're going to be abbreviating this with a short-term version with PD in this case. So our first step is we want to access the ticker, right? So in stocks, we have different companies like Apple, Amazon, and so on, and they're represented by something called a ticker symbol. So for example, we can do ticker symbol equals yf, which is again our Yahoo Finance. We're basically looking at this package and getting our data from here, and dot, we're accessing that data. We're trying to look for the ticker. And for example, we can do Apple, right? So Apple is a ticker symbol for Apple. So if I go to Google, type AAPL, you can see here we get the Apple stock, right? That's just how we identify the stock. So I type that in there. Next, we want to get the data, right? So we're going to create something called a data frame. And if you're familiar with Java or basic Java or anything, it's kind of like a 2D array that has strings as the indexes. So it's a very useful mechanism we can use. And here we'll create it, ticker data frame. We'll take our ticker symbol. And what we'll do here is we'll look at the history of it, right? Look at the history of it. And there's different parameters we can use when we're looking at the history. For our cases, we'll just take some basic ones such as period. Period is basically, what is the time span, right? For me, I'm going to do 1 year. Right. And interval is what is the aggregation, right? So say I looked at data between 2019 and 2020, right? That's the period, right? We're having 1 year of that period. My interval will basically simply be, you can do 1 day. So what this does is that every single day of this 1 year, I'll get some data, right, about the prices. That's my interval. Next, we can have a start date and an end date. So essentially, we don't really need this period here, but it's a good way to like make sure our data is within a certain period if like we're trying to find a certain period. But if you're looking at specific dates, right, like specific time periods, we can also use something called start and end dates. So our start date could be like 2020, we can do 3/1. So basically this is year, month, day. And then next we can do end. We can do 2020. We can do June. We'll do like something like June the 7th or something, right? Okay, great. So basically what we did here, we constructed our data frame, right? First, we actually looked at the apple, right? We looked at this ticker symbol, we identified which stock we're looking at, and then we looked at the history of it, right? We're trying to look at different components of the history and identify different price points. So now if we want to actually see our data at work, we can do print the ticker data, and it basically will just print this entire data frame. So let's save this file and let's run. So we just give it a minute. There we go. So what we have here is these dots basically symbolize that there's data between these two, but we're not looking at the entire data right now. But we can if we want to. Like later on, you can just expand these dots and see the inside data. But basically, as you take a look here, our data frame contains a lot of different data points, right? For example, it can tell us the open prices, the high prices, the low prices, the close prices, the volume, and so on, right? If you don't know what these price fields are, please like reference our first module where we like talk all about them and explain what these price points are. But you can see here at each date we collect the prices, right? And this is very essential because now we can basically take these prices, interpret them in our code, figure out if we can enter or exit at certain points. So basically this is the building block of the entire stockbot, right? Getting the data and evaluating the data. So in the next video, we'll basically be going over on how to manipulate certain parts of this data, right? Take certain pieces of it, leave out certain pieces, and basically how to interpret it. And we'll go from there in the next video. Thank you.